I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty insane to believe that this camera's already over 3 years old. Now, in some ways, it honestly feels older than that because we already have the S5 Mark II, but then in other ways, I'm like, dude, this thing is only 3 freaking years old. Like, that's not even old at all. Okay, now all that's beside the point. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because with the recent price drops, and especially in the used market for this camera, right now, here in 2023, I would say that the Lumix S5, the original version, is possibly the best beginner, the kind of mid-level video camera you can get right now. And just to prove that to you, I still use this camera as my main driver on all my professional paid gigs. So let's go ahead and dive into the reasons why I believe that and why you should buy this camera. And of course, we'll talk about a few reasons why you might want to avoid it. Now, to start off, this isn't a review over the Lumix S5 because God knows we need another freaking review over this camera. This is just to help any of you guys out if you're starting out and you're trying to figure out what camera you want to kick off your videography business with. First is the footage that comes out of this thing. It shoots 10-bit footage up to 4K 60. Now, if you don't know what 10-bit footage is, pause this video real quick. I'll link a video down below. Check it out so you can kind of get like a better understanding between 8-bit and 10-bit. But long story short, it's just going to make your life a hell of a lot easier when it comes to color grading. But like I said, this camera just handles its color so well. It handles skin tones extremely well, and it just makes color grading a breeze. Like, I rarely ever have to tweak anything unless if it's something I screwed up on my end with like my white balance or something like that. Then there's the stabilization in this camera. Now, the biggest thing that Lumix is always well known for is their stabilization. And just about every camera out there has stabilization. Like this camera I'm shooting on right here is the ZV-E10 from Sony. It has stabilization as well. I've used other cameras that have stabilization. None of them, absolutely none of them, can still compare to the Lumix cameras. And I don't mean it lightly when I say it. I have a gimbal that I use sometimes. I've used it for many weddings and different things like that. But when I use this camera, I feel so comfortable and so confident in the fact that I can use it handheld, that I'm not going to get tons of micro jitters, I'm not going to get shakes. You will get a little bit of, handheld movement in there, but for the most part, it looks so stupidly smooth. Now, the only caveat to that is I wouldn't recommend doing that with real estate videos where you do need 100% perfectly smooth footage, but if you're doing like weddings or if you're doing like kind of like some B-roll for a documentary or something like that, this camera makes it look so freaking good. Then there's the low light performance of this camera. Now, its dual base ISO on this camera is 640 and 4000. Now, that 4000 isn't like insane. It's not the best out there, especially compared to something like the A7S III or the FX3, something like that. However, though, it's still plenty enough to work with. I've shot many receptions where I've gone up to just 4,000, been able to work with it, and I even have cranked this camera past that up to like 10,000 or so, like on many occasions. Now, the risk you take when you do that is that you are going to lose dynamic range. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get the shot, though. Then there's the menu. Now, thankfully, Sony has, since the ZV-E10 right here, updated their menus to where they're a whole lot better than what they used to be. But on the ZV-E10, when I try to switch from it to this camera is so easy. I can navigate through everything lightning fast. It's not a problem. Whereas with the ZV-E10, it's pretty disgusting. Like, it's like super confusing. I always forget where everything's at. You have to search through like loads and loads and loads and loads of sub pages to get to where you need to go. It's really, really fast with this camera. Then putting the camera down for a second, let's talk about this kit lens that comes with it. This is a 20-60 variable aperture kit lens, and in almost every single situation, the kit lens sucks pretty bad. I've had many kit lenses. I've had the kit lens that came with my Canon M50. I had the kit lens that came with the ZV-E10, and this kit lens right here, and I can hands down say that this kit lens is actually fantastic. Now, you're not going to get a super shallow depth of field with it, but its overall performance and just look and contrast and everything is really, really good. Without a doubt, and I mean this 100%, the best kit lens I've ever used. If you're going to buy this camera, especially if you're going to buy it used, and you can find it like around that $1,000 mark with the kit lens, just do it. Last but not least, what without a doubt makes this just 100% a fantastic option if you're starting out or you're kind of in the mid-tier, you're kind of looking to upgrade a little bit, is the price that you can get this thing. Right now, I've seen this thing going used for like right around like $1,000 with the lens, with the kit lens on there, which is absolutely insane. Then I've seen them brand new on B&H. I think they're starting for like around like $1,200 with just the body. With the kit lens, they're probably like $1,300 or $1,400. There's been lens combos. They're trying to just get rid of these completely, so they're selling them for dirt cheap. Now for the reason why you may want to avoid this camera, and truthfully, I only have like one true reason. Now, a lot of people are going to say there is a second reason here, and it's the blaringly obvious, absolutely terrible autofocus. Now, I'm just going to say this. Yes, the autofocus on this camera is not great. I can admit that 100%. However, It's not bad though. Like, it's still perfectly usable. I've used this many times. I'm showing you clips right here. I've shot football videos. I shoot weddings with the autofocus all the time. As long as you know how to use the autofocus and you understand its limitations, you can get around it and it works just fine. But for my biggest reason why you may want to avoid this camera, and why honestly you may want to like look towards something like the Sony or like Fuji's or something like that, is the lens options. Now the Panasonic lens options is slowly growing, but they opted to go with the L mount on this camera, which is perfectly fine. Like, there are some good L mount lenses, but really you only have like 3 options right now. You have Sigma, you have the Panasonic brand, and you have the Leica brand. Now if you're not bougie, which I'm for sure not, you can just count Leica out completely. The Panasonic lenses are pretty good. Like, this is the 35mm from Panasonic right here. It's a pretty good lens, but the problem is most of their lenses still like just really add up in price. Like, they're really not that like just super affordable. They don't have like some good low-end options. And then you can look toward the Sigma lenses, but even the Sigma lenses that are available for Panasonic really aren't in the low-end option either. Not to mention the fact that on this camera, when you're using a Sigma lens, you do get really, really bad autofocus performance. Now, with that being said, there is one company called Samyang who has entered the L-mount alliance. We're waiting on their lenses to actually come out, but whenever they do finally start putting out some lenses, they should be pretty good, and they should be some great third-party options for the Lumix cameras as well. However, I just wouldn't buy anything based on future promises. So base everything you can on what's currently available for you right now. Now, obviously, this isn't the best camera out there. I'm not going to act like it's the best camera out there, and I'm not trying to sell you on this camera, but genuinely, if you're wondering, like, what's a really good camera for me to buy as a beginner, or maybe as, like, someone that's kind of mid-tier, I'm looking to upgrade from my, like, small little rinky-dink camera, ready to get a little bit of an upgrade, I genuinely believe this is the camera to go for right now. Honestly, when you're even just talking about just the lens options themselves, if you take like the savings you're gonna get if you buy this thing used, like if you find this thing for $1,000 used, you take that savings you just earned from any other camera you would have bought and put it toward a good lens, or maybe like 2 or 3 good lenses, like, you're going to be doing so freaking well. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there is the S5 Mark II, which I think has been on sale for here lately. I've been seeing it like the body only for like $1,700 or something like that. That's a fantastic deal for that camera as well. However, though, I don't know. I just don't think there's enough in that Mark II version to justify like the price difference. Like, unless you just want like a pretty good like better autofocus, I guess, than this camera right here. This camera does more than enough. A full frame camera that can shoot up to 4K 60 and 10-bit footage for around $1,000 is pretty dang disgusting. Anyways, if you want to check it out for yourself, I have a link down below, as well as all the other gear I like to use here in the studio and when I'm out in the field. Anyways, thanks for watching. Peace.